Hello and welcome to Both Sides of Love. I'm Camille. This is the space where we talk honestly about the stories we tell ourselves in relationships, the ones that feel true only because we've heard them so many times we stopped checking if they actually were. Today, it's 5 lies about romantic love. Not because love is complicated on purpose, but because somewhere between movies, old wounds, and advice that meant well but landed wrong, a few ideas got planted in us that were never true to begin with. They sound romantic. They sound like proof of something deep. That's what makes them dangerous. A lie dressed up as love is much harder to walk away from than one that looks like a lie. By the end of this, I want you able to spot each of these the second they show up again, whether it's in your relationship, a friend's, or a pattern you've been repeating without realizing it. Some of what I'm about to say might feel uncomfortable. Some of it might feel like I'm describing someone specific in your life right now. That's not an accident. These lies work on almost everyone at some point because they borrow the language of love convincingly enough that most people never think to question them until years have already gone by. So let's start with the one that feels the most harmless and is usually the first one we learn. The first lie sounds almost noble. Fighting a lot means you're passionate. Two people who argue constantly, who can't go a week without a blow-up, must feel things deeply for each other. That's the story anyway. It's wrong. What's actually happening is exhaustion, wearing passion's clothes so nobody looks too closely. When a relationship runs on adrenaline, every fight and every tearful makeup afterward feels intense. And intensity gets mistaken for depth because in the body they feel almost identical. Heart racing either way, stomach dropping either way, chest tight whether it's longing or dread, but depth is calm. It doesn't need a crisis to prove it's still there. If the only time you feel truly connected to someone is in the aftermath of a fight, that's chaos doing the job love was supposed to do. And chaos is exhausting in a way peace never is, even when peace feels unfamiliar, even a little boring at first, because you've spent so long mistaking stillness for something being wrong. Some couples stay like this for years, decades even, and mistake the length of it for proof it's working. A long relationship isn't automatically a healthy one. Some of the most painful bonds last the longest simply because pain and love can look nearly identical from a distance, especially to the two people standing closest to it. Too tired to see what anyone on the outside could point out in a second? If you've ever left an argument feeling more bonded than before it started, ask yourself honestly, is that bond built on understanding or just relief that the storm passed? Until the next one starts building on the horizon? Passion that needs a storm to prove itself was never really passion. It was noise, loud enough to feel like something in a silence that otherwise felt like nothing. And that's the trap. You start needing the noise just to feel like the relationship is alive because you've forgotten what it feels like when love doesn't have to fight to be noticed. The second lie is quieter, and it hides inside something that looks like devotion. Jealousy means he cares. A small amount of jealousy is human. Nobody's pretending otherwise, and most people feel a flicker of it at some point without anything being wrong. But checking someone's phone at night, tracking their location all day, needing to know exactly where they are every hour, that's fear trying to control something it can't sit with peacefully, dressed up in language that sounds like caring, so it's easier to accept. Trust is one of the hardest things a person can offer another human being because trust means giving up control, and giving up control terrifies almost everyone at some level. With a partner or with something much bigger than a relationship, it's the same leap we're asked to make with God. Release the need to manage every outcome yourself and believe that letting go doesn't mean losing everything you care about. That surrender isn't the same thing as danger. A relationship where you have to monitor someone constantly to feel secure was never actually secure, no matter how many times you check and how many times the answer comes back clean. Real love watches out for someone. It doesn't watch over them like a warden standing guard at a door, waiting for the first excuse to lock it. If you find yourself needing proof every single day that someone hasn't betrayed you, the problem usually isn't them. It's that the relationship was never built on the kind of safety that lets a person just breathe without proving their loyalty on repeat. That safety, once it's gone, is hard to fake for long, no matter how much either person wants to believe it's still there under all the checking and the questions and the quiet suspicion that never fully lifts. The person doing the checking is usually the one suffering most, stuck in a loop of temporary relief followed by a new wave of doubt the moment the phone goes quiet again. The third lie is the one Hollywood sells hardest. We can't live without each other. Beautiful in a movie, whispered right before the credits roll, the kind of line that gets applause in a theater. In real life, it's a warning sign dressed up as a compliment. When someone becomes the only thing holding your whole world together, that's dependency, not closeness. And dependency is fragile in a way real connection never is. A healthy relationship adds to a life that was already full. It doesn't become the only reason that life feels worth living. If being apart from someone feels like losing your own identity, your sense of self has quietly packed up and moved into them, piece by piece, without you noticing, until one day you can't quite remember who you were before them. That's a fragile place to live because no person, no matter how much they love you, was built to carry the entire weight of someone else's existence on their shoulders indefinitely. Eventually, something gives, and usually it's the person who's been asked to be everything, worn down by a job nobody should hold alone. You can love someone deeply and still be a whole person without them. That's actually the only way love lasts. Two whole people choosing each other every day is steadier than two incomplete people clinging to each other out of fear of falling apart on their own. If the relationship ended tomorrow, you should still recognize yourself in the mirror. If you wouldn't, that's not romance. That's a warning you've been quietly ignoring for a while, maybe longer than you'd like to admit to yourself, let alone anyone else. The fourth lie sounds like maturity, but underneath it's self-erasure. Sacrifice proves love. Relationships do take compromise, real compromise, where both people give something up for the other. But compromising and slowly disappearing are not the same thing. If you're the one always bending, always apologizing first, even when you weren't wrong, always shrinking your needs so the relationship stays comfortable for the other person, you're not being selfless. You're being erased quietly until there's very little left of who you were before this started. Your worth was never meant to sit on top of another person's approval of you. It was placed in you long before any relationship existed, by a God who already called you enough, long before someone else got the chance to decide whether you were worthy of love or attention or patience. A love that requires you to keep losing pieces of yourself just to survive isn't sacrifice. It's surrender of the wrong kind, the kind that costs you your voice, your boundaries, and eventually your sense of who you even are outside the relationship you've built your whole identity around. Real sacrifice flows both ways. It never asks one person to disappear so the other can stay comfortable and unchanged. If you've been the only one giving up pieces of yourself to keep the peace, quietly, over months or years, that's not love asking for compromise. That's something else wearing love's name, because it knows that name will keep you from questioning it too closely. The person doing all the bending often believes they're the one holding the relationship together, when really they're just absorbing the cost of keeping it comfortable for someone else without ever being asked if that cost was fair. By the time they notice, there's often very little left to rebuild from, because the version of them that used to have opinions and boundaries has been gone for a while. The fifth lie keeps people in situations far longer than they should stay. They only act like this because they've been hurt before. Understanding someone's pain isn't the same as tolerating how they treat you. People do carry wounds from their past, sometimes deep ones, the kind that take years to even name. Some of them never learned what a healthy relationship looked like growing up, so they're repeating the only blueprint they were ever handed. But someone's history explains where the behavior came from. It doesn't excuse what it costs you right now in the relationship you're actually living in, not the one you keep hoping they'll grow into. You can hold real compassion for what someone's been through while still refusing to let that pain become a leash on your own life and your own peace. Empathy without a boundary stops being empathy. It quietly becomes a kind of captivity, one that feels noble because you tell yourself you're being patient or understanding or mature, when really you're just absorbing damage that was never yours to carry. You were never meant to spend years paying for a wound that isn't yours to heal. Healing isn't something one person can hand another as a gift. No matter how much love or patience they bring, no matter how long they wait or what they give up along the way. If someone won't face their own pain, your compassion can't do that work for them. It was never supposed to be your job. You can care about someone deeply and still walk away from what their pain is costing you. That's not cruelty. It's the beginning of choosing yourself. And it's usually the first honest thing that happens in a story like this in a long time. The first thread pulled that starts unraveling everything that wasn't working. If any part of this felt like it was describing a version of you from a few years ago, or one you're still trying to walk away from right now, I hope this gave you the words for it. If something here landed, give it a like. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear that what she's been calling love might actually be something else entirely, send her this. I'll see you in the next one.